Overland Park, Kansas, was the kind of suburban area where life felt calm and uneventful. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained lawns, and a close-knit community that created an atmosphere of safety and serenity. However, on the evening of September 12th, 2023, everything changed with a horrifying discovery that would leave a lasting impact on the town. The Mason family, Mark, 42, his wife Sarah, 38, and their two children, Lily, 10, and Jake, 7, were found brutally murdered in their home. The crime scene was chaotic and violent, unsettling even the most experienced investigators. Bloodstains marked the carpet, broken glass covered the kitchen floor, and signs of a fierce struggle were visible in every room. It was clear that the entire family had been slaughtered in a calculated attack. The big question remained, who could commit such an atrocity? Initially, detectives suspected a robbery gone wrong, but this theory fell apart when they discovered that Ashley Woods, the Mason family's 21-year-old babysitter, was missing. Ashley, a college student majoring in early childhood education, had been a consistent presence in the Masons' lives for over 2 years. To neighbors and friends, she was like family, trustworthy, reliable, and caring deeply for the children. However, as the investigation unfolded, Ashley's sudden disappearance raised unsettling questions. Was she yet another victim, taken by the same person who killed the family? Or was there a much darker twist to the story? The mystery deepened when Ashley's car was found abandoned miles away, its interior stained with blood. Witnesses came forward claiming they had seen Ashley arguing with Mark Mason just days before the murders, and rumors of tension within the household started circulating. The investigation's focus shifted, and Ashley was no longer seen as a potential victim, but as the prime suspect. As the days passed, disturbing details about Ashley Woods began to emerge. Investigators uncovered evidence of financial fraud, an illicit affair, and a series of manipulations that pointed to Ashley being the mastermind behind the murders. Yet the most chilling revelation was the discovery that the seemingly sweet, dependable babysitter had been harboring a dark obsession that led her to commit this unthinkable crime. This episode of True Crime Case Files delves into the tragic story of the Mason family murders and the betrayal at its core. Through exclusive interviews with detectives, legal experts, and those who knew both the Masons and Ashley Woods, we explore how a trusted babysitter's hidden life tore a family apart and left an entire community in shock. Was Ashley a cold-hearted murderer driven by envy and greed? Or was she a woman pushed beyond her limits? The answers lie in the haunting details of a case that challenges how well we truly know the people we trust. I'm excited you're joining us. Before we dive deeper, please like this video to show your support and let us know where you're from. Now let's continue. On the night of September 12th, 2023, shortly after 10 p.m., a frantic 911 call disrupted the quiet of Overland Park, Kansas. The caller, trembling and barely coherent, reported hearing terrified screams coming from the Mason family home. "It sounds like something out of a nightmare," the caller told the dispatcher. "Please hurry, someone's in danger." Officers arrived at the house, a 2-story brick building in a peaceful cul-de-sac, within minutes. The house was eerily silent when they approached, and the front door was unlocked, an unsettling detail that made the officers uneasy. When they entered, they were met with a scene unlike anything they'd encountered before. The bodies of Mark, Sari, and their 2 children were found in various rooms of the house. Mark's body was located near the living room fireplace, showing signs of a violent struggle. Sarah was discovered in the kitchen, surrounded by shattered glass and overturned furniture. The children were found in their bedrooms upstairs, their small bodies indicating they had been caught off guard. Detective Rachel Keller, who arrived shortly after the initial responders, described the scene as disturbingly chaotic. Blood spattered across the walls and furniture, leaving behind a chilling portrayal of the violence that had taken place. "It wasn't just a crime scene," Keller said later. "It was a house torn apart by rage." Despite the brutality, there were no immediate signs of forced entry, which led investigators to believe the attacker may have been someone the family knew. Officers also noted that a half-eaten dinner remained on the kitchen table, and a paused movie was on the living room television, details suggesting the family had been ambushed in the midst of their evening routine. As police combed through the house, they quickly became fixated on one question: Where was Ashley Woods? The 21-year-old college student had been the Mason family's trusted babysitter for over 2 years and was supposed to be watching Lily and Jake while Mark and Sarah were out for the evening. But there was no sign of Ashley anywhere. Initially, detectives feared she might have been another victim, taken during the attack. "We had to consider that possibility," Keller said. However, as the night went on, doubts about Ashley's involvement began to surface. Her car was missing, and neighbors reported seeing her vehicle parked outside the house earlier in the evening. Furthermore, a set of bloody footprints leading from the living room to the back door, footprints that did not match anyone in the Mason family, raised suspicions. "We couldn't ignore the fact that Ashley wasn't there," Keller explained. "The more we searched, the more it seemed like her absence was intentional." The investigation quickly intensified as detectives worked to reconstruct the events leading up to the murders. In the backyard, officers discovered a knife, partially buried in the grass, likely the murder weapon. Inside the house, they found Ashley's purse, its contents hastily emptied onto the floor. Among the scattered items was a receipt from a nearby gas station, dated just hours before the murders. Adding to the mystery, neighbors reported hearing raised voices coming from the Mason home earlier that week. One neighbor, who wished to remain anonymous, told police she had seen Ashley and Mark arguing on the front porch 3 days before the murders. "It wasn't just a disagreement," the neighbor recalled. "She looked furious, and he looked scared." The murders sent shockwaves through Overland Park, a town where violent crime was virtually unheard of. The Masons were well-liked and heavily involved in the community. Mark was a respected accountant, and Sarah was a cherished elementary school teacher. Their children, Lily and Jake, were known for their bright smiles and friendly personalities. In the days following the murders, neighbors held candlelight vigils outside the Mason home, leaving flowers and handwritten notes on the front lawn. "We were all just trying to make sense of it," one neighbor said. "It's unimaginable. They were such a wonderful family." As for Ashley Woods, initial reports painted her as another possible victim. Friends and acquaintances described her as a caring, dependable young woman who loved children and dreamed of becoming a teacher. "She was like part of their family," one neighbor said. "There's no way she could have been involved in this." But as detectives delved deeper into Ashley's life, they began to uncover a side of her that no one had seen before. A side that would transform her from a missing babysitter into the primary suspect in one of the most shocking cases Overland Park had ever witnessed. In the days following the murders, detectives worked tirelessly to piece together the puzzle. Forensic teams analyzed the crime scene, gathering fingerprints, blood samples, and DNA evidence. Meanwhile, a statewide alert was issued for Ashley Woods, whose car had still not been found. "At that point, we didn't know if she was alive or dead," Detective Keller said. "All we knew was that she was the key to solving this case." The discovery of Ashley's car, abandoned several miles away with bloodstains on the driver's seat, marked a turning point in the investigation. It was no longer a question of whether Ashley was involved. The search for Ashley Woods intensified as it became urgent to locate her before she could vanish entirely. As investigators dug deeper into her connections with the Mason family, a darker truth began to emerge. Financial issues, secret affairs, and buried resentments painted a chilling picture of a motive for murder that no one in Overland Park had expected. For 2 years, Ashley had been more than just a babysitter to the Masons. To outsiders, she had practically become part of their family, a young woman who brought warmth, patience, and a natural ability to make the children laugh. At just 21, she appeared to be the perfect caretaker, beloved not only by the Masons, but by everyone in the tight-knit Overland Park community. She was the last person anyone would have suspected of any wrongdoing. Ashley had first become involved with the Mason family when Sarah Mason posted an ad at the local university seeking a babysitter. Ashley, then a sophomore studying early childhood education, eagerly responded. During the interview, she charmed both Sarah and Mark with her bubbly demeanor and glowing recommendations from families she had worked with before. Sarah confided in a friend, "She was great with the kids, responsible, and studying to become a teacher. It felt like she was meant to be part of our family." Lily and Jake instantly adored her, and she engaged them in activities like homemade crafts, scavenger hunts, and baking cookies on rainy afternoons. "She made everything fun," said a neighbor who often saw Ashley with the kids. "They were always laughing, like she was their older sister." Over time, Ashley became a central figure in the Mason family's life. She babysat several nights a week, often staying late when Mark and Sarah attended work events or date nights. On weekends, she joined the family for outings to the park or the local zoo. During busy times, Ashley also helped with household chores, cooked meals, and tidied up the kids' rooms. The Masons treated Ashley like family. Sarah often invited her to stay for dinner, and Mark occasionally drove her home when her car was being repaired. At holidays, they gave her thoughtful gifts, including a custom bracelet engraved with Lily and Jake's initials. A family friend recalled, Mark and Sarah really trusted her. She knew their schedules inside and out and was a reliable presence in their lives. Beyond the Masons, Ashley's life at Overland Park University, where she majored in early childhood education, seemed just as promising. She was well liked by professors and peers, frequently volunteering for tutoring programs and participating in a campus organization dedicated to helping children with special needs. Those who knew her saw her as someone destined for a bright future. She was so friendly and upbeat, said one of her professors. Ashley had a natural gift for working with kids. Neighbors also spoke highly of her, describing her as responsible and always willing to help. She was the kind of person you'd want watching your kid, said one woman who lived near the Masons. But as detectives began investigating Ashley's life, they uncovered cracks in her seemingly perfect image, cracks that hinted at a much darker side. Beneath her friendly exterior, Ashley was grappling with severe financial problems and a growing sense of dissatisfaction with her life. Her college tuition was supported by a combination of scholarships, part-time jobs, and occasional help from her estranged mother. But in recent months, she had fallen behind on rent, leading to her eviction from a small apartment near campus. To avoid revealing the truth, Ashley told the Masons that she had moved in with a friend, though in reality, she was living out of her car. Her financial troubles extended beyond rent payments. Bank records later revealed Ashley was deeply in credit card debt, much of it spent on designer clothing, expensive electronics, and trips she could not afford. Her friends began to notice signs of her increasing desperation. She always talked about wanting more out of life, said one former classmate. She hated feeling like she was falling behind. As Ashley's financial struggles worsened, her relationship with the Masons began to change. Detectives later uncovered instances where Ashley pushed the boundaries of her role as a babysitter, asking for pay advances. Sarah thought it was a little strange, but she trusted Ashley, one family friend recalled. Ashley's proximity to the Masons gave her insight into their routines, weaknesses, and vulnerabilities. And as investigators would later find out, she wasn't afraid to exploit that trust. When news of the Mason family's murders broke, Ashley's name quickly became linked to the case. Neighbors and friends were shocked, unable to reconcile the cheerful babysitter they knew with the possibility that she was involved. She loved those kids, insisted one neighbor. There's no way she could have hurt them. She was part of the family. But as detectives delved deeper into Ashley's life, they began to uncover a troubling pattern, suggesting that her relationship with the Masons wasn't as innocent as it appeared. From financial theft to emotional manipulation, Ashley Woods was hiding secrets that would soon transform her from a trusted caregiver to the prime suspect in a case of betrayal and murder. In the aftermath of the murders, one major question loomed. Where was Ashley Woods? Initially, detectives considered the possibility that she had been abducted or killed alongside the family, especially since she was supposed to be watching Lily and Jake that night. Her absence from the crime scene raised concerns, but the investigation quickly shifted when new clues about her disappearance emerged. 2 days after the murders, Ashley's silver Honda Civic was found abandoned in the parking lot of a strip mall, 6 miles from the Mason home. The doors were locked, and inside, police found a small blood-stained towel on the passenger seat. Forensic analysis later confirmed that the blood matched Mark Mason's DNA, linking Ashley's car to the crime. Detectives also found a crumpled receipt from a nearby gas station, dated the evening of the murders. Surveillance footage from the gas station showed Ashley entering the store alone, wearing a hoodie and jeans, and purchasing a small container of bleach. The footage was time-stamped at 9:45 p.m., about 20 minutes after neighbors reported hearing screams from the Mason home. Detective Rachel Keller, the lead investigator on the case, called this discovery a major red flag. If Ashley had been a victim, why was she calmly buying cleaning supplies shortly after the murders? The discovery of Ashley's car opened new avenues for the investigation, but also deepened the mystery surrounding her disappearance. Witnesses reported seeing Ashley in Overland Park just a day before the murders, and neighbors recalled seeing her frequently visit the Mason home. However, there were no confirmed sightings of Ashley after the gas station footage, and her phone had been turned off, making it difficult to track her whereabouts. As the investigation continued, troubling accounts about Ashley's recent behavior surfaced. One neighbor, Carol Henderson, reported seeing Ashley arguing with Mark Mason on the family's front porch just days before the murders. She was yelling at him about money, Henderson said. I couldn't hear everything, but she was clearly upset, and Mark was trying to calm her down. Another neighbor who wished to remain anonymous described Ashley as increasingly agitated in the weeks leading up to the crime. She always seemed so bubbly before, but lately she looked stressed, like she was carrying a burden. Initially, Ashley's disappearance led many to believe she was another victim of the attack. Friends and neighbors had described her as kind and dependable, making it difficult for anyone to imagine she was involved. However, as the evidence mounted, suspicions began to shift. Investigators learned that Ashley had been evicted from her apartment just a month before the murders due to unpaid rent. Court records revealed a pattern of financial instability, including thousands of dollars in credit card debt and multiple overdraft charges. Despite her financial struggles, Ashley continued to live beyond her means, frequently posting pictures of expensive dinners, designer clothing, and weekend getaways on social media. It was clear that Ashley had been hiding much more than anyone realized. Detective Keller remarked that Ashley Woods was far from the person everyone believed her to be. Her financial struggles, the heated argument with Mark, and the evidence found in her car pointed to a much darker reality. As rumors of Ashley's involvement spread, the Overland Park community became deeply divided. Those who had trusted her found it hard to reconcile the cheerful babysitter they knew with the mounting evidence against her. I still can't believe it, said one of Ashley's former classmates. She loved those kids. There's no way she could have done something like this. However, others began questioning how well they had really known Ashley. She always seemed so perfect on the outside, said a former neighbor, but maybe that was just an act. You never really know what someone is capable of. The growing suspicions only heightened the urgency of the investigation. Detectives launched a nationwide search for Ashley, plastering her face across news outlets and issuing an Amber Alert-style bulletin to law enforcement agencies in neighboring states. She wasn't just a person of interest anymore, Keller said. She was our prime suspect. The breakthrough came when a witness in Topeka, Kansas, reported seeing a young woman resembling Ashley at a bus station. Surveillance footage confirmed the sighting, showing Ashley boarding a bus bound for Arizona. Investigators suspected she was attempting to flee the state and start a new life under a false identity. As Ashley went on the run and more evidence linked her to the crime, the Mason family murders began to take on a more sinister tone. What could have driven the trusted babysitter to betray the family that had taken her in? The answer lay in the secrets Ashley had been hiding and the lengths she was willing to go to keep them from being exposed. As the manhunt for Ashley Woods ramped up, detectives uncovered a motive tied to a chilling betrayal. Ashley wasn't only hiding financial troubles, but had also been stealing from the Masons for months. The once beloved caretaker had exploited the family's trust in a desperate attempt to fund her lavish lifestyle. Detectives obtained the Masons' bank records, revealing a troubling pattern. Over a span of 6 months, Ashley had written multiple unauthorized checks to herself, forging Sarah Mason's signature. The amounts ranged from $200 to $1,500, totaling nearly $10,000. This wasn't a one-time thing, said Detective Eric Dunn, who worked alongside Keller. Ashley had been systematically stealing from the Masons for months, and they had no idea. Sarah Mason discovered the theft just weeks before the murders after noticing several discrepancies in her bank statements. She confronted Ashley about the stolen money, and Ashley tearfully admitted to it, promising to repay every cent. However, Sarah later confided in a friend expressing doubts. She's in way over her head, Sarah said. I don't know if I can trust her anymore. Despite her financial struggles, Ashley had maintained the appearance of a carefree, affluent lifestyle. Her Instagram was filled with pictures of high-end shopping trips, luxury spa days, and meals at expensive restaurants. She frequently portrayed herself as living the life of a young woman who had it all together. Detectives discovered that much of this lifestyle had been funded by the stolen money, with bank statements revealing extravagant purchases such as designer handbags, electronics, and even a weekend getaway to Las Vegas. Friends who followed Ashley on social media were shocked to learn how she had financed her glamorous life. She always seemed so polished and put together, one friend said. But now it all makes sense. She was living a lie. The revelation of Ashley's financial theft was a crucial piece of the puzzle. Detectives theorized that Sarah's confrontation had cornered Ashley, threatening not only her access to the stolen money, but also the image of trust and reliability she had carefully built. It was a classic case of greed and desperation, Detective Keller explained. Ashley had built her entire life around the Masons' trust. When that trust started to unravel, she became dangerous. But the financial motive was only part of the story. As investigators continued to dig, they uncovered an even more shocking secret, one that pointed to a deeply personal betrayal and a dangerous obsession that would eventually lead to murder. Ashley's email account and text messages revealed evidence of a year-long affair with Mark Mason, adding an even darker dimension to the case. What had initially appeared to be a case of financial greed now revealed layers of manipulation, jealousy, and obsession. The affair between Mark and Ashley began about a year before the murders, starting as friendly banter during babysitting sessions, but escalating into something much more serious. Emails and texts between the two depicted a deeply inappropriate relationship. "You're the only one who understands me," Mark wrote in one email, and Ashley replied, "I can't stop thinking about you. I wish we didn't have to hide." Neighbors who frequently saw Ashley around the Mason home described her interactions with Mark as overly familiar, though no one suspected the full extent of their relationship. "She would always joke with him and laugh at everything he said," one neighbor recalled. "I thought she was just being friendly." The messages revealed Ashley's growing attachment to Mark, often pressuring him to leave Sarah and start a new life with her. "We could be happy together," one message from Ashley read. "You don't need her, you need me." But Mark's responses grew colder, indicating he had begun to regret the affair. In one message sent a month before the murders, he wrote, "This has to stop. I can't do this anymore. It's not fair to Sarah or the kids." The discovery of the affair changed how Ashley's actions were viewed. Her financial thefts, constant presence at the Mason home, and escalating tension with Mark all pointed to a woman spiraling out of control. Detectives theorized that Mark's attempts to end the affair may have been the breaking point for Ashley. "She wasn't just in love with him," said Detective Rachel Keller. "She was obsessed. She had built her entire identity around being part of the Mason family. When Mark tried to pull away, it all started to unravel." Friends of Ashley later recalled warning signs they had overlooked at the time. One classmate remembered a conversation where Ashley spoke about a complicated relationship with a married man. "She said he was the love of her life, but that he wasn't ready to leave his wife," the classmate recalled. "She seemed heartbroken, but I never thought she was talking about Mark." The weeks leading up to the murders were marked by growing tension between Ashley and Mark. Detectives uncovered evidence of heated arguments, including a confrontation outside the Mason home just days before the crime. Witnesses described seeing Ashley yelling at Mark, her face red with anger, while Mark tried to calm her down. "She was furious," one neighbor said. "I heard her say something like, 'You promised me,' and he kept saying, 'This has to end.'" The relationship between Ashley and Mark also began to take a toll on Sarah, who had grown increasingly suspicious of Ashley's closeness to Mark. Friends recalled Sarah confiding that she felt uneasy about how much time Mark spent talking to Ashley. "She said it was probably nothing," one friend said. "But looking back, I think she knew something was going on." Sarah's suspicions reached a breaking point when she confronted Ashley about the stolen money, an argument that detectives now believe may have included veiled accusations about the affair. "It's clear that Sarah was starting to put the pieces together," Keller said, and that made Ashley feel even more cornered. By the time of the murders, Ashley's financial troubles, obsession with Mark, and fear of exposure had created a dangerous combination. Detectives pieced together a chilling narrative. Ashley's desperation to maintain her relationship with Mark and her growing paranoia about losing her place in the Mason family drove her to commit an unthinkable act of violence. "She felt like her entire life was slipping away," Keller explained, "and rather than face the consequences, she chose to eliminate the people she saw as standing in her way." The full extent of Ashley's plan would become clear when investigators reconstructed the events of the fateful night. On the evening of September 12, 2023, Ashley arrived at the Mason home, pretending to be there to babysit. Mark and Sarah had planned a rare date night, leaving Ashley to watch over Lily and Jake. What should have been a typical evening quickly turned into a nightmare. Ashley arrived at the house shortly before 6 p.m., her demeanor described by neighbors as calm and cheerful. She greeted the children warmly, played board games with them, and helped them with their homework. Mark and Sarah left around 6:30 p.m., completely unaware of what was about to unfold. Using surveillance footage and witness statements, detectives pieced together Ashley's movements. After putting the children to bed around 8 p.m., Ashley began searching the house for anything she could use to confront Mark and Sarah. She found Sarah's laptop in the office and accessed their bank records, likely searching for evidence of her theft being discovered. Mark and Sarah returned home shortly after 9 p.m. What happened next was reconstructed through forensic evidence and the testimony of neighbors who heard the commotion. Ashley confronted the couple in the living room, accusing Mark of betraying her and threatening to expose their affair. When Sarah demanded Ashley leave, the situation quickly escalated, leading to a tragic end for the Mason family. The argument between Ashley and the Masons escalated into a violent confrontation. Forensic evidence indicated that Ashley had armed herself with a knife from the kitchen before the couple returned. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision, Detective Keller said. As the argument reached its peak, Ashley lashed out, stabbing Mark multiple times in the chest. When Sarah tried to intervene, Ashley turned on her, fatally wounding her in the kitchen. Neighbors reported hearing screams and the sound of breaking glass. But by the time anyone called 911, it was too late. The most heart-wrenching part of the crime was the fate of Lily and Jake. The children were awoken by the commotion and came downstairs to find Ashley standing over their parents' bodies. In a chilling decision, Ashley chose to silence the only witnesses to her crime. This was the hardest part of the case to process, Keller said. She knew those kids loved her, but she saw them as threats to her freedom. After killing the family, Ashley attempted to cover her tracks. She quickly cleaned the knife and discarded it in the backyard, though traces of blood were still found on her clothing. She rifled through Sarah's purse, taking cash and credit cards, and then fled the scene in her car. Surveillance footage from a nearby gas station showed Ashley buying bleach and cleaning supplies shortly after leaving the Mason home. Her calm demeanor in the footage starkly contrasted with the chaos she had just left behind. She thought she could erase what she had done, Keller said, but the evidence she left behind was overwhelming. As detectives worked to piece together the timeline of the crime, a nationwide manhunt for Ashley Woods began, with hopes of capturing her before she could disappear for good. The hunt for Ashley gripped the nation as news outlets broadcast her image across television and social media. Once considered a trusted babysitter and a potential victim, she was now the prime suspect in a quadruple murder that had shaken the quiet town of Overland Park. Local police, federal authorities, and the Kansas Bureau of Investigation collaborated to track her down. The day after the murders, they issued a warrant for Ashley on charges of first-degree murder, theft, and identity fraud. Authorities believed she had fled the state after surveillance footage showed her boarding a bus in Topeka, Kansas, bound for Arizona. The footage, recorded the morning after the murders, showed Ashley wearing a hoodie and sunglasses, carrying only a small backpack. Despite her efforts to conceal her identity, her face was already widely known. The public played a crucial role in the search, and tips flooded in from across the country, with witnesses reporting sightings of a woman matching Ashley's description. Investigators followed each lead, though many turned out to be false. "She couldn't hide forever," said Detective Keller. "Her face was everywhere, and we knew she'd eventually make a mistake." That mistake came 2 weeks later in a small town outside Phoenix, Arizona. Ashley was using a stolen credit card to pay for food and lodging, and one of her transactions raised a red flag. Officers traced her to a rundown motel where she had been staying under a fake name. Authorities surrounded the motel, but Ashley initially refused to cooperate. Officers knocked on the door of her room for several minutes, announcing their presence, but she remained silent. "It was tense," Keller recalled. "We didn't know if she was armed or if she'd try to harm herself." Eventually, Ashley opened the door, her face pale and tear-streaked. She surrendered without resistance, though her calm demeanor unnerved the officers. "It was almost like she knew this was coming," one officer said. Inside the motel room, police found key evidence linking Ashley to the murders. Her backpack contained Sarah Mason's stolen credit cards, as well as jewelry and other valuables taken from the Mason home. Most damning was a blood-stained hoodie matching the description of the one she had worn on the night of the crime. Ashley was extradited to Kansas within days, where she faced charges of first-degree murder, theft, and identity fraud. The community of Overland Park was both relieved and horrified by her arrest. Many struggled to reconcile the image of the trusted babysitter with the cold-blooded killer described by authorities. During her initial interrogation, Ashley refused to speak, invoking her right to remain silent. Detectives hoped she might show remorse or offer an explanation for her actions, but she remained stoic. There was no emotion, no regret, just silence, Keller said. The arrest sent shockwaves through Overland Park. Vigil services for the Mason family continued, with neighbors and friends gathering to mourn their loss. Conversations soon turned to Ashley, the betrayal of trust that had shattered the community. Everyone thought they knew her, one neighbor said. She was part of their family, for God's sake. How could someone do something so evil to people who cared for her so much? Parents who had once trusted Ashley with their children were especially shaken. It's terrifying, one mother admitted. If someone like her could do this, how do we ever trust anyone again? Ashley's trial began 9 months after her arrest and became a media sensation. The courtroom was packed with reporters, true crime enthusiasts, and grieving friends of the Mason family, all eager to hear the details of the case. Prosecutors built a damning case against Ashley, presenting evidence that portrayed her as a manipulative, cold-blooded killer driven by greed and obsession. Prosecutor Alan Riggs opened the trial with a stark statement. Ashley Woods was not a victim. She was a predator who betrayed the trust of the Mason family, manipulated their kindness, and ultimately ended their lives. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence, including financial records, bank statements, and stolen checks that showed Ashley had embezzled thousands of dollars from the Masons over several months. Text message screenshots between Ashley and Mark revealed their year-long affair and her escalating threats when he tried to end it. Forensic evidence, bloodstains on Ashley's hoodie and in her car, matched the DNA of Mark and Sarah Mason. Surveillance footage from the gas station and bus station placed Ashley near the crime scene and documented her attempts to flee. The most chilling moment came when the prosecution described the murders in detail, piecing together the sequence of events based on forensic analysis. This was not a crime of passion, Riggs argued. This was a calculated act by someone who saw the Mason family as obstacles in her path. In contrast, Ashley's defense team argued that she had been emotionally manipulated by Mark Mason, portraying her as a vulnerable young woman who had been lured into an affair by an older man. Ashley was just 20 years old when Mark began pursuing her, defense attorney Laura Chambers said. He exploited her youth and trust, creating a toxic relationship that left her emotionally unstable. The defense also argued that Ashley's actions were not premeditated and that she had acted in a moment of passion and fear after being confronted by Mark and Sarah. She panicked, Chambers said. She didn't intend for things to escalate the way they did. The defense called several character witnesses, including former classmates and professors, who described Ashley as kind and hardworking. However, cross-examinations revealed inconsistencies in their accounts, further weakening the defense's case. One of the most powerful testimonies came from Sarah Mason's best friend, who recalled Sarah's suspicions about Ashley and Mark's relationship. Sarah told me she felt like Ashley was trying to come between her and Mark, the friend said, her voice trembling. She was worried, but she never imagined it would come to this. The prosecution also called former employers who described a pattern of deceit and theft in Ashley's past, including an incident where she had been fired for stealing money from a daycare center where she worked before babysitting for the Masons. In closing arguments, the prosecution painted Ashley as a cold, calculating killer who had exploited the Masons' kindness for her own gain. She didn't just betray their trust, Riggs said. She destroyed an entire family out of greed, jealousy, and desperation. The defense, meanwhile, asked the jury to see Ashley as a flawed but broken individual. She made terrible choices, Chambers said, but she is not the monster the prosecution would have you believe. The jury deliberated for 3 days, weighing the evidence and arguments from both sides. In the end, their decision would bring justice for the Mason family, but it would not erase the scars left behind by Ashley Wood's betrayal. The courtroom was packed when the jury returned with the verdict on June 14, 2024. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury declared Ashley Woods guilty of 4 counts of first-degree murder, theft, and identity fraud. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom as Ashley sat motionless, her expression unreadable. For the Mason family's relatives, who had attended every day of the trial, the decision brought bittersweet relief. "Justice has been served," Sarah Mason's sister Linda said outside the courthouse. "But nothing will bring them back." Judge Robert Whitaker addressed Ashley before issuing her sentence. "Your actions represent a profound betrayal of trust," he said. "You took the lives of 4 innocent people, including 2 young children who saw you as a protector. For these crimes, the court sentences you to life in prison without the possibility of parole." Ashley's demeanor remained stoic, and she declined the opportunity to speak before sentencing, refusing to address the victims' families or the court. Her silence only deepened the sense of betrayal felt by those who had once trusted her. For the Mason family's surviving relatives, the verdict brought some semblance of closure, though the pain of their loss remained. "There's no victory here," Mark's brother, David Mason, said during a press conference. "We've lost an entire family, people who were kind, loving, and had so much to live for. But at least we know the person responsible will never harm anyone else." The Overland Park community echoed these sentiments, devastated by the betrayal and the loss of 4 beloved lives. The sentencing of Ashley Woods brought mixed emotions to many, with some expressing relief that she would face the full consequences of her actions. In the weeks following the trial, candlelight vigils continued to honor the Mason family's memory, as neighbors and friends gathered to reflect on the tragedy that had rocked their town. The trial of Ashley Woods became a national sensation, with true crime enthusiasts and media outlets dissecting every detail. Podcasts and documentaries delved into her background, motives, and the chilling betrayal of the Mason family. Legal experts debated whether Ashley's sentence was appropriate, with some suggesting that her youth and emotional instability should have been taken into account. Ashley Woods is a textbook example of how unchecked obsession and greed can spiral into violence, one psychologist commented during a televised analysis. "She wasn't just a thief or a jealous lover. She was someone willing to destroy lives to protect her own secrets." The Mason family murders left an indelible mark on Overland Park and beyond, serving as a stark reminder of the darkness that can lie hidden behind even the most trusted facades. Ashley Wood's betrayal, as someone welcomed into the Mason home as a family member, remains one of the most haunting aspects of the case. Psychologists and legal experts analyzed Ashley's behavior, noting her manipulative tendencies and lack of empathy. Dr. Elaine Turner, a criminal psychologist, explained that Ashley exhibited traits consistent with sociopathy. She knew how to charm people and gain their trust, but her actions reveal a complete disregard for the lives she destroyed, Dr. Turner said. Her financial desperation and obsession with Mark Mason were just catalysts for a much deeper dysfunction. Former friends and classmates were equally baffled by the disconnect between the person they thought they knew and the killer revealed during the trial. "She was always so sweet and hardworking," said one former professor. "I still can't wrap my head around how she could do something so horrific." For the residents of Overland Park, the Mason family murders shattered the illusion of safety and trust that had long defined their community. Parents became more cautious about who they allowed into their homes, and schools began implementing stricter background checks for anyone working with children. "It's sad that it took something so terrible to make us realize how vulnerable we are," admitted one neighbor. Local organizations also began offering resources to help families identify signs of manipulation and abuse, aiming to prevent similar tragedies in the future. "We need to learn from this," said a community leader. "The Masons trusted Ashley completely, and that trust was weaponized against them." Despite the horrific nature of the crime, those who knew the Masons have worked tirelessly to ensure their memory is defined not by how they died, but by how they lived. Mark was remembered as a dedicated father and loving husband, Sarah as a compassionate teacher who inspired her students, and Lily and Jake as bright, joyful children with endless potential. A local park was renamed in their honor, featuring a memorial garden where friends and neighbors could gather to reflect on their lives. "They were a family that brought so much light to this community," Sarah's sister Linda said during the dedication ceremony. "We owe it to them to carry that light forward, even in the face of darkness." The story of Ashley Woods and the Mason family continues to captivate true crime audiences, serving as a cautionary tale about the hidden dangers of trust and betrayal. The case raises unsettling questions about how well we truly know the people we invite into our lives and the lengths to which some will go to protect their secrets. As the documentary concludes, it reflects on the lessons learned from the tragedy and the resilience of a community determined to heal. The final scenes show flickering candles at the Mason family memorial, a symbol of hope and remembrance in the wake of unimaginable loss. The Mason family murders remain a chilling legacy, a story that reminds us of the fragility of trust and the devastating consequences of betrayal. Thank you for sticking with us until the end. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and comment 1. If not, comment 0. Keep exploring more thrilling cases right here on our channel.